are you optimistic that we will find a positive and amicable relationship with our technology, or are there dangers?
There's absolutely dangers. There always are. And there's dangers with fire, right? And with cars. We so far have learned to deal with them. I do think that since the 20th century, something has changed because we've reached a level of technology where there are existential risks, where we can commit suicide as a species, right? And so I'm not saying that that's imminent or it's going to happen, but we have the capability to do that, which we didn't before. There's nothing that 19th century people could have done to wipe out all of humanity, right?
And since the 50s with nuclear warheads,
now we can do it. And now we're developing new ways to do it, right? And so if you imagine that there's a percentage probability that a new technology will literally wipe out all of humanity, what percentage is acceptable?
Yeah.
I mean,
what is?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it 1%? Probably not.
When you read those stories of the Manhattan Project.
Right, of which Feynman was a part of.
Feynman was a part of it. I was at the University of Chicago for a while where they did the first self-sustained nuclear reaction, Enrico Fermi.
Right, under the basement, right?
In the squash courts under the football stadium. And there was a very real worry that, this was downtown Chicago. They were doing this, right? This wasn't in the middle of the desert. And they didn't know whether, they weren't absolutely sure. One of their fail-safes was a big barrel of cadmium, which you could pour over the reactor to cool it down. And it was held over the reactor by two Husky graduate students, the thought being that if a burst of radiation killed them, they would drop the cadmium and it would fall and shut off the reactor, right? Because they were in such a rush to get things done, they didn't step back and wonder about these things. A different version of that worry came up with the Large Hadron Collider when it turned on. And physicists there were very, very careful. They thought very, very hard, and they decided, no, there's no realistic scenario we can think of that would really be harmful. But it's a new kind of worry. I worry about solar flares, okay? Solar flares, we all know solar flares exist. If there's a big one, it can cause temporary disruptions. There's at least a plausible scenario where once every 1,000 years, there's a solar flare big enough to wipe out all electricity on Earth, which would cause millions and millions of people to die, right? And once every 1,000 years...
Does it wipe it out permanently or for a certain period of time?
Well, electricity, for a few weeks or a few months.
Right. Yeah, that's dangerous.
Imagine what that would do, right? Los Angeles, we worry about earthquakes, but the worry about earthquakes is not that the buildings fall over. We build buildings now that will not fall over. The worry is that Los Angeles has these umbilical cords of water and electricity to the rest of the world that will be just cut, right? And Los Angeles without water and electricity is not going to be a pleasant place to live. If a solar flare comes along and destroys the entire Earth's power grid, that's bad. But if it happens once every 1,000 years, no government is going to spend money to prevent it. Like, it's preventable. You could harden the grid, right? But who's going to spend money to do that if it's not going to happen for another 1,000 years?
Right. Okay. So it's about assessing the probability and then making a judgment on that.
Human beings are not evolved to worry about 1,000-year timescales, much less million-year timescales.